Hi, welcome to Keep On Pushing TV. I am your host, Devon Harris. And yeah, you know what we do here, right? We share ideas and insights that are going to challenge you and inspire you to keep on pushing and live your absolute best life. So, look, man, are you interested in that even remotely? Well, you know, if you are, you're in the right place, the absolute right place. So, again, welcome to Keep On Pushing TV. Our guest today is a champion swimmer from Bangalore, India. During her 15-year career, she won 148 national medals, 36 international medals, to include 5 golds. At the 2004 Summer Olympic Games in Athens, she competed in both the 50-meter and the 100-meter freestyle, and in fact was the first Indian swimmer to qualify for 2 separate events in an Olympic competition. And in fact, again, was the only Indian swimmer to compete in those Olympic Games. By 2005, she held 7 national records and another first Indian woman to hold so many records simultaneously. In fact, that year she was honored with the Arjuna Award, an award given by the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports from the Indian government, recognizing outstanding achievement in sports. In 2006, she became the first female Indian swimmer to win an international medal for a short course event. She took the bronze in the indoor Asian age group swimming championships. In 2009, she completed her dual master's degree in biology and biotechnology from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. And that year she applied for and was accepted for a position at the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, becoming the first Indian woman to be employed by that agency. Among a number of things that she's doing these days, she works as a product manager at TechCrunch, based in San Francisco. A really impressive young lady. I think you're going to enjoy today's conversation. I'm really excited, pleased to be able to welcome Shikha Tandon to the show. Shikha, welcome to Keep On Pushing.
Thank you so much, Devon. Happy to be here and looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, man, I think it's going to be fun. Our audience is going to really enjoy it. You know, you describe yourself as a shy, quiet little girl. Can you tell us a little bit about her? You know, her family life, the kinds of things she liked to do, the kind of things she used to daydream about.
So I grew up in India, in Bangalore, and like you said, I was a pretty shy young kid, and I was always outgoing, always athletic, always liked to be outdoors doing stuff. But at home, just like to be by myself. I used to love drawing, reading at home, and so during school days, it would be go to school, come back, just sit in my room, draw, and that was the typical day up until I was 8 years old, and then my brother was diagnosed with asthma, and so the doctor recommended that he be taken to the pool to learn how to swim to help his lung capacity. And I always wanted to be an athlete, just wanted to be a runner. And so at the age of 8, my mom took me to this club in Bangalore, India, where they were training young kids. And unfortunately, I was told that they don't accept kids until they're 9 years old. So they told my mom, come back the next year when she's 9, and we'd be more than happy to take her into the program. And that's the year when, my brother's asthma, the recommendation was that he learn how to swim. So he was taken to the pool, and he's
so you just have just one brother?
I had just one brother. Yeah, he's a couple of years younger than me. And so he was taken to the pool. And so my mom also took me along to the pool because I couldn't be left at home alone. And I was initially actually very scared of the water. And so while all the other kids would be, jumping in and out, I would be the one sitting on the side, just dipping my toes in and saying, what, I'm done. Let's go home.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started. And as far as swimming goes, and then one thing led to the other. And I started enjoying it, and within the first 1 year, I actually won my first national medal.
Yeah,
So
and
when
here
I
we
turned
are now.
nine,
You are an Olympic swimmer and the fastest female Indian swimmer ever, huh?
yeah. So I've held that national record for the 50 free, and I mean, I think since 2001. So it's been
Mm,
quite a long time.
got
And
you.
yeah, so I've come a long way from that 9-year-old who, wanted to be an athlete, turned out to be a swimmer instead.
Yeah. So this quiet, shy little girl has grown into what everyone can see now as this confident, articulate woman. So, can you give us a synopsis, Shika, as to what that transformational journey was like?
So I think just growing up, I was from the age of 8 all the way to 24. I swam competitively for India for 15 years. So I think growing up, that was a big part of my life.
Mm,
Training 2 or 3 times a day, just 6 days a week for that many years, and then also going to school and college in alongside of that. So I think that pretty much shaped who I was. And obviously, as an athlete, you learn to understand your body, you learn to be confident, because that's what you have to be able to achieve all your goals. So I think being an athlete shaped who I am today, and just everything that I'm interested in, and everything that I even that I currently do and believe in. So that's been a big factor into what I've become today.
yeah. So you mentioned that you were afraid of the water. You used to just tip your toes in the water, but now, as we know, you've one of the fastest female swimmer ever in India, an Olympic swimmer. How did you get past the fear?
I think for me, the key was just to enjoy it, because no one really pushed me into, swimming. It was one of those things where I was taken along and given my time to get comfortable and, start enjoying it on my own terms. And I think
Mhm.
that's something that was really crucial, because I feel like if I had been pushed into it, then I may have, just gotten a little defensive and, wanted to take a step back. But it was one
Yeah,
of those things where my parents never really pushed me into doing anything. It was always encouragement. It was never, you have to do this or you have to do this. It's, these are your options, take your time, do what
right.
you're comfortable with. And I think that was the biggest driving force for me to go from being that scared young girl to someone who just loved being in the water, and that just became what I love doing every single day.
Yeah. So for the rest of us who aren't, 9 years old and have parents who are supportive and encouraging to help us get past our fears, how would you suggest we work past those fears? Because our fears do impact our ability to succeed, doesn't it?
Yes, for sure. I think, just being fearful of an endeavor just is something that definitely, could potentially hold someone back. So even today, when I'm fearful of something, or I'm taking a step into an unknown situation and I'm not sure how to navigate that, the first thing I tell myself is, just break it down, because sometimes we always tend to look at the result, and that's what kind of inhibits us from, even taking that first step. So I
Mhm.
always try and break it down into tiny chunks, and just take it one step at a time, because then it just looks less intimidating, and then you're able to, while keep the big picture in mind, but also you look forward to the short term goals, is what they call it. So just that baby steps at every single step of the way. And I think that applies not only to learning something like swimming. It could even apply to work, where you've gotten a project and you're just unsure, but instead of thinking and getting overwhelmed with the situation, it's just my recommendation is take the small steps, and those go a long way.
Yeah, yes, that small steps. You're right, though. Big goals can seem intimidating at times, but if we find a way to break them down into tiny bites, then it becomes more manageable, right?
Definitely.
So your journey, Shika, is I would say is instructive to us. You went from, as we were just discussing, being afraid of even dipping your toes into the water to becoming an Olympic swimmer. And obviously, you cannot become an Olympic swimmer, let alone a swimmer, let alone an Olympic swimmer, if you don't commit to being in the water, right? And what I've noticed about life is that there are a lot of people who they kind of hover around, they hang around the pool of life, so to speak. And they will occasionally dip their toes in the water, but never fully commit
Mhm.
to their goals. Um, can you comment on that? And what advice would you have for people like that who are just, you know, too timid to fully commit to their goals?
So I think there's two ways to look at that. I mean, it's just given where we are in this day and age, we've got so many distractions and so many opportunities around us. So, it's that there's probably multiple things at any given point of time that are interesting and that we
Mm,
want to jump on. So, the one thing is to, just kind of narrow down and, what you really want to do. And I think that comes from understanding who you are and what you want to do and, what makes you happy. And I think until you're truly honest with yourself, it's going to be hard to kind of narrow down, all these different opportunities that you have around you, and then figure out what that goal is that you want to achieve. And then once you figure it out, I think with that comes a certain level of clarity, because in your mind you're comfortable with the decision that you've made, in your heart you're comfortable with that decision you've made.
mm,
And if it's something that makes you happy, I think you wake up every morning looking forward to it. So I think it all starts with being completely honest with yourself and truly understanding what makes you happy, and try and block out what everyone else is saying, and that what should make you happy, or what others expectations are of
right.
you.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
think we tend to get bogged down quite a bit by oh, what does someone else think of me, or what do they want me to do. So I think it's that tunnel vision or that tunnel focus that some people tend to have. It's because they have that that clarity of mind and heart into what they're doing.
A clarity of mind and heart. That sounds a really good advice, I think, because you're right. People tend to be scatterbrained at times, and I say that kindly, or just get so wrapped up in what others are thinking they don't spend time really trying to understand who they are, as you say. Um, so you won your first medal, and I read that both you and your mom were crying. Your mom was crying because she was so proud of her little girl, and 9 years old, I think, and you won your first medal, and you were crying because you didn't like the color of the ribbon of the medal. What did your mom say to you then?
Yeah, so that's one of actually my favorite stories, and I think that's definitely a point in my swim career that changed a lot of things. And I think it's at that moment where I realized, like, okay, this is what I want. But like you said, I was crying, my mom was crying, she was crying because she was proud of me, and at 9 I'd won my first national medal. I was crying because I didn't like the color of the ribbon. And so, at the end of that medal ceremony, my mom told me that if you really want the other color of the ribbon, you have to work hard for it. And I think for me, that's something that just really stuck. I mean, it's one thing to envision what you want, but I think it's a completely different ball game actually making your way up to that goal. And I think hard work is definitely one of the key factors to achieving something.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's instructive. If you don't like the color of your ribbon, if you don't like the results that you've created, then you have to get back to the drawing board. So to go back to what you just said, spending time figuring out what you want, and then once you have decided on that thing, it also is not the end of the journey, right? You have to kind of put in some elbow grease, I like to call it.
Right. And
Um,
crawl on all fours.
yeah, yeah. So, your journey into competitive swimming, you mentioned, was a result of some opportunities, some comedy and some mostly opportunities. What were those opportunities? And how do we prepare ourselves to take advantage of opportunities when they present themselves?
Right. So for me, I mean, when I look back at my journey, I talk about comedies, just all those different opportunities. I look at them on some level as comedies, because just given the situations, just the first example being that I wanted to be a runner, and at the age of 8, they didn't want to take me until I was 9. I started swimming, and by 9, I was winning national medals, and so I never really went back uh, to running. So just given that as an example, so I mean, if I hadn't taken the opportunity, or if my mom hadn't taken that opportunity to take me to the pool when I was 8, who knows, swimming may never have happened. And I think
Hmm.
one of the things with that I've learned is that when we're looking for opportunities, we always tend to look at the things that we enjoy in the moment. Uh,
Hmm.
and but I think there's definitely merit in, exploring or even just revisiting things that we potentially did not like in the past. And for me, that swimming is an example, because my mom knew that I didn't like swimming. She knew that I was the kid always outside the pool and not jumping in. So
Mm-hmm.
if she hadn't taken that chance and said, okay, let's revisit this, this activity that she doesn't necessarily like in the moment, I would have, never had that second opportunity to, to explore swimming in, as a second chance, or in a different situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true with what we do. Like even today, when I look at things around me and I have the opportunities that I have, I even if it's something that I have not necessarily enjoyed in the past, I never shut it down. I always, try and explore it, because the circumstances, the situations are very different at every step of the way.
Right.
And who knows, maybe the door was meant to open at this time and not, a few years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
I think doors open at certain points in your life, and I think it's well worth at least looking in to see what's there.
Right.
And then if you always want to close it, that's a decision that you can take, based on all the different thoughts that you put into it. But I think it's always worth looking into that
Right.
door.
So the opportunities are and the chance for success then are usually outside of your comfort zone. Um, so you started swimming by 9 year winning medals, national medals. 10 years later, you're at the Olympic Games. At what point during that journey did you think did the Olympics come on your radar? You think that this is something you wanted to do?
So to be completely honest, when I started swimming, the Olympics was not on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of kids these days say that, as soon as they start swimming, that they want to be that Olympic gold medalist. But for me, that just wasn't what it was. For me, it was one day at a time. I was enjoying swimming. I used to just enjoy going to the pool and practicing. And that's what it was for, I want to say, almost the first 6 7 years. And I think the first time that I, really thought about the Olympics was in 2000, when I tried to qualify. My times in the 50 free were pretty close to the qualifying time for the
Mm-hmm.
Sydney Games. And that's, I think, when I really thought about the games, just because my times were close to the
Right.
qualifying time.
Right.
So I tried out, I missed it by a little bit. But I think from 2000 onwards is when I, just
It
actively
became
put
a
in all my
focus.
efforts. Yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's when it really became a focus. So pretty late, I want to say, compared to,
Mm-hmm.
maybe other kids. But again, I think that clarity came from just because I was enjoying it. And I think I wasn't burdened by the fact that I want to go to the Olympics. It was
Right.
something that just, kind of fell into place when the time was right.
Mm. So you've stated that great triumphs are sometimes hidden behind your worst failures. First of all, that I have to say that sounds very poetic, but it's also very true. I think it's true. So if you will talk us through some of those failures that you have experienced and tell us how you're able to get past them.
So one of them was, again, just going back to the swimming and qualifying for the Olympics. So I swam at 2004 at the Olympics. In 2008, I was trying to qualify for Beijing. I was in the best shape of my life, and we were pretty confident of making that qualifying time. Uh, but in my final qualification race, I swallowed water at the 35-meter mark out of the 50-meter mark, and
Mm-hmm.
anyone that knows swimming and the 50 freestyle, that's that changes a lot of things.
Right.
So yeah, so I touched the wall, and I just broken the national record again, but I had missed the qualifying time. So it was one of those like bittersweet moments. So
Mm-hmm.
in that moment, my first reaction was, oh no, I failed to qualify for the Olympics, because that national record was really not what was my goal. It was qualifying for the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that moment, the emotion was just all negative. And I want to say that negative emotion actually, just stuck with me for quite a while after that, because I was just so overwhelmed by having to miss it for something like swallowing water. I mean, you never
Right.
have that as a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then now when I look back, I mean, at the end of the day, it was a national record, and that national record has stayed, and that was way back in 2008. And it's almost the end of 2019, and that still
It still
stands. So
stands. Yeah.
yeah, it still stands. So it's one of those things where, yes, it's a bittersweet moment, but you've achieved something that no one else has ever done.
Mm-hmm.
uh, but in that moment I viewed it as a failure. But now when I look back, I mean, it's a success, and a success that still stands today.
So what's your advice? I know in hindsight you're looking back and you go, wow, actually I did succeed. How What's your advice for how we deal with failure? Because I often use the analogy of a boxer, right? So when the boxer is in the ring, he gets punched or she gets punched. And it stings in the moment, but you still have to come out swinging if you hope to get to the end of the round or the end of the bout. Um, so failure stings. It hurts. How do you, what's your suggestion for dealing with it in the moment?
So I think one way to look at it is, failure definitely stings, but it stings because it means something to you, and that endeavor, or that, the process that you're going through, it means something to you, and that's why it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think always, I try and look at the big picture and say, okay, in the moment this stings, yes, maybe take a break, just settle down, and, then revisit those thoughts, okay, and then try and troubleshoot. Why did that sting? What happened? And make those changes, because your long-term goal never really goes away. It's these baby steps that you're taking, and it's okay to take one step back every so often, as long as you're learning from that step that you've taken back. And
Yeah.
that's something that I try and apply even today, because it's not common that, at every step of the way you're going to be moving forward, there's always going to be that little bump where you have to take either a step back or even a step to the side. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's okay, as long as, you have that big picture in mind and you're working towards making that step forward, whether that comes today, tomorrow, or, a few months from now, or a few years from now. I think that's really the way to look at failure, that it's a learning opportunity, and really nothing more than that.
Gotcha. So no matter what, it's a learning opportunity. Keep your eye on the prize, right?
Right, right.
So I know you speak passionately about passion. Um, what is passion, Shikha?
I think it's just something that you really, really enjoy doing, something that resonates with who you are as a person. Uh, that's really what it is. And, we talk about finding your passion, and, you have all these different seminars and webinars, and, people trying to, have this checklist of, this is how you find your passion. But I think it's truly just something that you enjoy doing, and that means something to you, that becomes a part of who you are, and that could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really just how I look at it. And there are multiple ways to, to find that, but, it's really boils down to the fact of, are you being truthful to yourself, not necessarily, taking other people's expectations and making them your own.
Yeah.
uh, they might overlap, but as long as, you understand that you're doing what you're doing for the right reasons, that resonate with you, I think finding that passion, just becomes a little easier.
Yeah. Being true to yourself. Kind of think this is the second time where that phrase is coming up in this conversation. That's really important, isn't it? Because a lot of people tend to go pursue goals that are not their own. It's their parents' goal or their friends or teachers, right? And that does make the journey a little bit more difficult, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does, because now you're not really thinking from your heart. You're thinking from, somebody else's thoughts that have been put on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also, definitely beneficial to, take into account those recommendations, because maybe there are things which you don't see, which other people can see in you, maybe a potential in a certain field that you've never really thought of. So I think it's worthwhile definitely taking all those different thoughts and recommendations into account, but
Mm-hmm.
don't be stuck on them if that's not something that you truly believe in.
Yeah, because in the end, it's still your decision and your life, right?
Right. And you're the one that has to wake up every morning and, go through with whatever you choose to do. So
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
to be comfortable with that decision.
That's probably why, there's a study that says 80% of people in the world don't enjoy the work they do. And I mean, I understand that that yeah, as we just said, you have to make sure that you're doing the things that you love, right? Um, what advice would you have for those people who find themselves on a job for 10, 15 years and they're not they're not feeling that passion. They're not feeling that this is what they are meant to be doing.
So I think in those situations, it's always, nice to think, maybe think outside the box a little bit. And I'll give you an
Mm-hmm.
example of, with athletes. A lot of us, we finish our careers, and most people around us assume that we are going to go into coaching, and that we are going to, become take up coaching as our next career step. And while some athletes definitely go on to do that, and there's a lot of merit in doing that, but there are just
Mm-hmm.
so many other careers that an athlete can capitalize on, which I don't think we necessarily talk about, just because those are not your typical mainstream careers. So even
Mm-hmm.
something that I did was, I studied biology in school and college. And so what I did after I finished my swim career was to kind of mix uh, both my athletic accomplishments and learnings with what I had studied. So I was able to use my education as well as my sporting learnings from the sport, and combine them into doing that job at the US anti-doping agency. And that's
Right.
something which nobody else had even thought about before that in India. And that led to an opportunity which no one else had told me about in the past, and no one
Mm-hmm.
else had walked down that path before. And even after the US anti-doping agency, when I was looking for my next opportunity, again, I wanted to be in sport, I wanted to be in health and fitness. And so I looked at the technology route. And even what I'm doing right now is a combination of of technology, and also the couple of startups that I work with. It's all around tech and health and fitness. And the swimming and the learning from the swimming and being an athlete, that is almost the basis of everything that I've done. So
Mm-hmm.
it's when you're looking for opportunities, I think look outside the box and try and connect the dots to things which don't seem the most obvious.
Yeah, you brought up a really interesting point, because a lot of people have this, I'm going to say, incorrect perception of athletes are being one dimensional. We're good at only one thing, whatever sport it is that we do. But it is clear from your example and so many others that we are multidimensional, and we have, other abilities and interests outside of sports. And that's one of the things I try to impress upon young kids who want to either go to the Olympics or play professional sports, that, while you're, working on developing your biceps, you need to be developing the muscles in your mind as well, because they are going to, those muscles last much longer, work much better than the biceps and the hamstrings, don't they?
Well, in some cases, yes.
In some
Yeah, no,
cases.
but I think the advantage with athletes is that uh, just going through your sporting career, you're always pushing the limits of performance, and you're always trying to get better than you were the previous day. And so that allows you to think about yourself, think about your body in ways that most other people don't do on such a regular basis. And
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest advantage that athletes have. Like, once we come out of our sport, come out of our competitive career, or even if it's not necessarily been a competitive career, but you understand your mind, you understand your body in ways that most other people don't. And I think just being able to use that to your advantage uh, definitely helps open up avenues which otherwise may not have been possible.
Yeah. And that's common to every athlete, right? This idea of pushing beyond your perceived limits. How do we get the non-athletes, so to speak, to adopt the persona of an athlete and push themselves, in their sales career or their marketing career or as a parent, so to speak? Well, how do we get them to do that?
So if you look back, the way an athlete works, it's not something that happens overnight. Typically takes months or years depending on what the goal is. So I think it again boils down to those baby steps, understanding what your eventual goal is, and breaking it down into smaller parts, and then tackling each part as one, versus trying to
Hmm.
get overwhelmed with 5 or 10 different other things at the same time.
We were speaking about passion just a minute ago, and you encourage us not to just follow our passions, but to allow our passions to follow us as well. Um, and you mentioned just now, leaving competitive swimming to get into biotechnology and so on. Um, how has your passion followed you? How do we who are not athletes, our viewers and listeners, how do they embrace this idea of having their passions follow them?
So when I said, like, don't just follow your passion, but let your
Mm.
passion follow you, it's, I stopped swimming about 10 years ago, competitive swimming about 10 years ago. And being an athlete or being athletic and just having that athlete mindset and just thinking about sport and health and fitness, that's something that's just never going to go away. That's just
Mm-hmm.
my passion. That's just something that I've done for many, many years now. But in my career currently, I take that and almost keep that as the basis of what I do, because that's my passion. And
Mm-hmm.
then I just add, the technology aspect to it, or the analytics aspect to it, or the anti-doping aspect to it. And but that passion of being involved or being an athlete is always the basis of everything that I do. And so that's what I meant by it. Don't just uh, take that with you, take that passion with you, and let
Mm-hmm.
that follow you, and potentially drive all the other
The new
aspirations and
endeavors.
goals that you
Mm-hmm.
that or endeavors that you then encounter.
One of the, and it makes perfect sense to me anyway, because part of the keep on pushing philosophy is to take your current skill and knowledge and experience and apply them to the new environments in which you find yourself. And so, yeah, if you are, really passionate about something, you can or have develop a highest level of skill in one area. You can take that and apply it to your new endeavor, your new aspirations, as you just mentioned, and pursue the same level of success that you have enjoyed. Um, Speaking of success, Shikha, so you have had a number of firsts, right? The first Indian woman to hold 7 national records simultaneously, first one to, the only person who was competing, only swimmer to compete in Athens, the first Indian female to win an international medal, the first Indian woman to work at the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, and so on and so forth. What do those accomplishments mean to you?
I mean, they've all been stepping stones, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And in the moment, I'm very happy that I've achieved all those things, because those were definitely goals at that time. And but I don't think that really defines who I am in terms
Mhm.
of what I do today. Like, I don't hang on to those first,
Right.
because like you said, it's one of those things where you keep tacking on different goals to what you've achieved, and you
Yeah.
achieve one thing and then you move on to the next. So I think, while I'm proud of what I've achieved, I've had a lot of support from be it parents, be it extended family, be it coaches, friends, uh, even my teachers in school and college. I mean, none of what I've achieved is would have been possible without everyone's support. So all those firsts, are not just mine, but it's really been a product of a collective effort from a bunch of different people. So I'm appreciative of those firsts. I'm definitely thankful for having had that opportunity to even venture onto trying to achieve those firsts.
Hmm.
But I don't think any of that really defines who I am today, just because my goals are so different from when I was an athlete. uh,
So what I hear you saying is that, although you have achieved some significant success, you didn't do it all by yourself. So teamwork is an important part of your journey, correct?
right, definitely.
Yeah. And so you have had these significant successes. They don't define you. They became the stepping stone for other goals. So tell us now, you've been done with competitive swimming for 10 years or so. What are you working on now?
So right now I work at a tech media company called TechCrunch. And I'm also working with a couple of startups. One is called Svexa, and the other one's called RepMonk. And those are based around sports and performance analytics. So with Svexa, it's we work with different elite athletes and sports teams, and it's performance and recovery analytics, and load analysis. And so it's helping athletes and teams prevent injuries, prevent illnesses, and just help them uh, optimize their training from a day-to-day standpoint, and helping coaches understand their different athletes on the team, and providing potentially a personalized training regimen for those different athletes, so that each person can achieve the best that they can be.
So is that
And
using technology and creating a device that they use to track their performances and activities?
so what happens these days is that all the different teams collect a lot of data from their athletes, but
Mm-hmm.
not everyone knows how to kind of put that data together into getting valuable information and insights. So that's where we step in. We help these teams take all that data and analyze that data in a way that is meaningful for the coach and the athlete, which then in turn helps them make decisions on workload or training cycles for those athletes.
Mm. All right, cool. So Shikha, the quiet, shy little girl from Bangalore, India, who turned into a champion Olympic swimmer, and who developed her passion, followed her passion, and has allowed her passion to follow her. Uh, you know, Definitely epitomize the keep on pushing philosophy. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with us here and keep on pushing.
Thank you so much, Devon. It's definitely been a pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for watching. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you click on that subscribe button and hit that bell. You'll get a notification every time we post a new video. And don't forget, share it with your friends, man. They want to be inspired as well, right? So share it. Don't keep it. And before you go on to the next video, visit my website, www.devonharris.com. Keep on pushing.